up on the VFW and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have the invitation now. Father Haley from St. Vito's Church.
Almighty God, we ask that you gather us together in honor of a fine gentleman, someone whose roots are embedded in the buildings, the streets, the electrical poles, the lights that we use in this village.
On Mamaroneck Avenue, between the two bakeries, right next to the fire. And it's in the afternoon, and all those young men are out there, young boys rather, and they come out with finally two wagons come without the horses. Now we're gonna go around emptying all the backyards on anything that burns for the fire, for the bonfire, which is gonna be right in the middle of the street. Sometimes it's 20 feet high. I've seen it 25 or maybe a little higher. We did that for a number of years. They did it before me. Then more cars came out, so now we have to move. Behind the bakery on the right side, which was Cordy's drugstore before, there is now there's a auto parts store there. That wasn't there. Between that and the Lanza house is where the bonfire was. We had it there for a number of years, and then it got to be a little too much because there's more population and everything. Now the school and the village took it over. They moved it on the Mamaroneck Avenue School field, and the school got in touch with the tomato pear. That was where the sports club is now. They made them keep all the boxes for the fire, so we had a big bonfire on that field until a certain time, and then the fireman would put it out because the kids got to go back to school again and stuff. You don't want them to stay out too long. The next thing that took place was after the war, the Halloween parties in Columbus Park that the GI Civic Club used to run. Now we've had at times 500, 600, but when I took over chairman, because before that the fellows from the club used to do all the judging. When I became chairman, I did away with that. We got all the women's clubs, the women's club, the gardens club, everything. They were the judges, plus Carol Reed. She used to bring her son into my barber shop, and I told her we're going to have this. Would she like to be a judge? She says certainly. Every year she wanted me to remind her that there's going to be. And the little thing about her, she was one of the first women on TV. Well, she wore glasses, so she couldn't see the chart. She had to memorize the whole thing. She talked all from memory. And then we of course, in them days, we trick or treat. I have two of my daughters here, and they always wanted to go out. And one of the biggest places they wanted to go was on Barry Avenue, because next to the telephone company, Tony Aloisi lived, and he had a deep voice, and he was a great as a Dracula. And the other one was Carol Reed, where she lived where not Waywellstone, but this area, Barry Avenue, where there's this, anyway, it's in that street. And her husband was an electronic guy, so he had a coffin when you went in. But he put a microphone on a tree, so when the kids got up to the door, the voice came from behind them. So, but they were always scared to go there, but that's where they wanted to go, those two places. And of course, at them days, it was always snow and cold. And it was, for some reason or other, most of the men took the kids out, the youngsters out. And we would always say, let's see if we can talk them to go home. No, a few more houses. But that's the way it was in them days. So that's up until now, that's it.
I don't want to block anybody out. Well, it doesn't really matter.
I think he was great. Don't block me.
All set? All right, can we have your attention, please? I want to welcome everyone here this evening to honor a very special individual, a man that we can truly say is a Mr. Mamaroneck in our generation and in our time. When my cousin Joe asked me to come in and say a few words on his behalf, I asked Joe to give me a resume. And Joe did fax me a resume. And I was thoroughly surprised at all of the involvements that Joe has had within the village of Mamaroneck over the past 25 years. As all of you probably know, Joe is a lifelong resident of the village of Mamaroneck. And in 1979, and this appears Joe started a search for change committee which helped those that were disadvantaged find housing. He then went on to the electrical board, and in 1992 became a trustee in the village. Joe then replaced outgoing Mayor Paul Noto, who then went on to the county legislature in '94 and was elected in March of '94 and then subsequently elected in 1995 and '97. Most of us remember an incident that we had, a very unfortunate incident in Mamaroneck a number of years ago involving anti-Semitism. And Joe led the march, so to speak, in forming a task force which exists today to try to educate and counteract that type of activity. For that, Joe was awarded at a dinner the Westchester Jewish Conference Distinguished Service Award for his leadership to the community. And he also, at that same year, was awarded a B'nai B'rith Award. He served as chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Waterworks, and that was part of his function as mayor. He then became and is a member of the Old Timers, former member of the Emmeline Theater, member of the Board of Trustees of the Westchester Shore Humane Society. He's presently a director of the United Hospital, and he has been a director since 1997 of the Sound Federal Savings and Loan, and was a recent recipient of the LMC-TV award. He's also a member of the Kiwanis Club, the Old Timers, served in his capacity as a soccer coach when his children were in that age group, and he served as his president of the parish council at St. Vito's. I would say that that would probably be one of the most ubiquitous areas of service that anyone could ever imagine, both governmental, religious, and family. I think it also is important to just give a brief history, and it'll be very brief. You did, I should say, the Historical Society did a program on the Lanza family a number of years ago. And I just want to highlight and outline a few observations.
The Lanzas and Reganos came here from a little village called Santa Teresa in Messina, Sicily. I believe Leo Spinelli's family is from that area, the Tremarchis, the Spadaros, any number of other, the Garuffis, any number of other Sicilian families came from that area. The Lanza men married the Regano women, and they haven't stopped since. It is interesting to note that the Lanzas and the Reganos left an imprint on Mamaroneck because they were in the building and construction line. And it's also interesting to note that I'm sure that there was, among the Lanzas and the Reganos who could not speak the language, who went out and worked manually, a desire someday that their predecessors would go into government and perhaps make a contribution in another area of service to the village of Mamaroneck. And lo and behold, we had a mayor from the Lanza Regano family who did fulfill the dream of his forefathers and foremothers. I think it's also interesting to note that if you really know my cousin Joe Lanza, Mayor Lanza, you know that he has two, I think, outstanding qualities. The first quality is Joe is probably one of the best listeners in the village of Mamaroneck. How he does it, I don't know, but he tells me the Zyrtec and the Tums, etc., and Prozac help him along. Joe is also a conciliator. And I don't believe you can read a book and become a conciliator. I think either you're born that way or you're not born that way. Joe happened to have been born that way, but I think it also had to do a lot with his family. And I think it had to do a lot with his upbringing. And it enabled Joe, who will never say no to someone. He'll say, let me talk about it with you, let me look at the problem, let me see if I can find a solution. I'm not going to tell you yes, and I'm not going to tell you no. But if he gives you his word on something, you can take that word to the bank, and preferably it would be Sound Federal Savings and Loan. I think you'll also find the quality of loyalty in my cousin Joe Lanza. He's sort of, and Father Healy, I'm not trying to steal your thunder, he's sort of like a parish priest. You literally can go to Joe with any problem you have, and he does not stand above you, he doesn't look down upon you, but he tries to work with you to solve the particular situation that you may be in. And to me, that is something that is literally priceless. Now, I would be remiss if I did not indicate that this evening we have here Joe's lovely wife, Mary Ann. And let me say this. She told me to say nice things about her. I never say anything but nice things about her. So I don't know why she has this attitude. But if Prozac will help, I will buy the first prescription. If you know Mary Ann, she's a doer. And who is the person that said behind every successful man is a woman without a diamond ring and a mink coat? She's got the diamond ring, emerald diamond ring, and I know she's got a mink coat because in the winter she wears it. Joe is also blessed with two lovely children, Joshua and Kristen. And he was first blessed with a lovely mother who's my godmother, Michael Ida, who's sitting over in the corner on the side of the table with her sister and sidekick for 85 years, her sister Angie Perrone. And the family, in Italian La Famiglia, has been the mainstay. The thing about Joe. If you do him a good turn, he never forgets it. And if you do him a bad turn, he forgives you. He probably avoids you, but he'll forgive you. He doesn't really have a bad word for anyone. And along with his brother Jimmy in the Lanza's Electrical, they have made strides in this village from an occupational point of view. And their reputation is by far estimable. When I swore Joe Lanza in as mayor in '94, I remember Joe saying to me, you know, I really love going around Mamaroneck. And when I campaign, it's really great when I knock on a door and somebody says, are you Richie Lanza's cousin? And Joe Lanza would say, yeah, I'm his cousin. Well, we love your cousin Richie, and I'm sure you're just as good, etc., as he is.
Tell them about the people that thought you were my father.
They no longer live in Mamaroneck. The more important thing is, and the reason why I brought that up was, as time went by, I would go places, and someone would say, are you related to Joe Lanza, the former mayor? And I would say, yes, I am. And they would say, he's a great guy. And you want to know something? You should be very proud to have him for a cousin. Well, I certainly am proud to have him for a cousin. I'm grateful that he is and always will be a community-minded individual. And I think Mamaroneck owes a debt to my cousin, Mayor Joseph Lanza. And I think also we owe a debt to his entire family for giving us the time and the energy that Joe has given us over the years. Now, before I have Joe stand up, I just want to mention we have here County Legislator George Latimer, who's also the chairman of the Westchester Democratic Party. And we have Donald Derrico, who is the husband of Christy Derrico, who is on our Board of Trustees. He's here with us this evening. And Joe will be announcing a few of the other people that he has as the night goes on. So at this time, without further ado, I'm going to turn the microphone over to my cousin Joseph Lanza, the mayor, and I wish him all good things. He deserves them. Your Honor.
Thank you, Richard.
My pleasure.
Thank you for those nice words. First of all, I have to say, tonight is my anniversary. And I'm here, 29th anniversary, not with this woman, with another woman. Actually, my wife, Mary Ann, and I just want to thank her for allowing me to come here tonight. But we had dinner last night. We had a good time last night and today. But anyway, I want to thank her for that anyway. I just want to go back a little bit. I know Leo was talking about the village and things that happened in his day, and the thing I guess I can most remember happening in my day was the day John Quadrini came to my office, and he said, Joe, he said, we're going to do something great in the village of Mamaroneck. He said, we're going to take the old schoolhouse, one of the oldest schoolhouses here in the village, he said, and we're going to redo it. He said, and we're going to put it someplace. And I said, okay, John, first of all, where's the schoolhouse? I didn't even know we had an old schoolhouse in the village of Mamaroneck. And he took me down to Waverly Avenue, and amongst some weeds and some overgrown bushes and trees, there was a shack. And we stood out in the road, and he said, there it is. And I said, where, John, where? He said, there, that's it, that's the schoolhouse. I said, that thing there? I said, why don't you burn it down? I said, and we build a mock schoolhouse someplace. I said, well, what do you want to do that for? He said, no, we want the original schoolhouse. I said, John, what do you want to do with this? He says, well, he says, we're gonna take it, he says, and we're gonna move it to a place that you're gonna give us in the village to put it. And I'm looking at this with tongue in cheek, but remembering in the back of my head that John, I don't know if people know this here, but John is really a magnificent artist. He builds villages and towns out of the little miniature villages and towns from scratch. They are unbelievable. He's building, I saw it was down at his office the other day, he's building this beautiful snow scene with sleigh riders and the hills and trees and the houses, magnificent. I said, you know what, if anybody can make this work, it would be John. But it's going to take a lot of work. He had some great people with him. He had Gloria Pritz with him. He had Bill Frazier with him. who's another real artist. That's another story about him putting the roof on the schoolhouse. But we once it got out, they came to a village board meeting one day and came before the board and told us what they wanted to do. And there were a lot of people with tongue-in-cheek and a lot of people who were against us using property or putting it in any location in the village. We tried to put it down in Columbus Park. It was a flood control area. We tried to put it in Harbor Island down in the Orienta Avenue by Rushmore Avenue. That was a flood control area. Actually, the only place that was a viable location would be Harbor Island Park across from then was Pontiac Motors. Abe Shalou had the building there at the time. And it was going to kind of block the view of Harbor Island. I did get many, many phone calls from people who were against it. They weren't really against the schoolhouse. They were against putting a building down at Harbor Island and blocking the view. John assured me that it would not block the view, that he would do it in such a way that the people would be happy with it. Well, we did it. There weren't a lot of people happy with it at the time. I got reelected anyway, right, John? So. But anyway, I guess most people did like it. But the job that they did on it with the roof, and I remember Bill working in the middle of the winter, putting shingles on the roof, putting wood shingles, I think, right? Were they wood shingles? And I would say to him, well, why don't you get fabricated roof or something? No, they had to do everything by hand. Everything had to be done the way it was done back 100 years ago when the school was first built. And then they took this building and they moved it, I guess, down Waverly Avenue, down Mamaroneck Avenue, or however they got it to the harbor. Rockland, all of the streets to get this building down to the harbor, where they did a unbelievable job. And I got to tell you, I'm very proud to have been a part of that schoolhouse. I drive by there now. I say, boy, it really looks beautiful. And I don't know if Mary and Gloria were telling me the other day that they have a lot of kids go into that schoolhouse now and do studies and whatever, and have classes, and people really love to go in there and see it. And I think it's a great thing, and it's a great part of history for the village. It's something that you see. You just drive down Boston Post Road, and there it is. It has a bell on it. It has a flagpole in front of it. It really looks fantastic. So I want to thank you guys in the Historical Society for doing that for all of us. Sometimes it takes a fight. It takes a battle to do things. The end result is that people really enjoy it in the end. It becomes an environmental impact when you first do it in people's minds, because they never see something there, and all of a sudden something is there and they don't like it. But as time goes on, they start to appreciate the beauty of something like this. And I think the whole village has. I think there may be one or two people now that are still, and we know who those people are, that really, really don't like it at that particular location. But it was the only place, and I think it was the best place to put it. So I want to, again, thank you guys for that. I just want to introduce a couple of friends of mine here, people I serve on a board with at Sound Federal Savings and Loan. We have our chairman, Bruno Joffrey, in the back. Bruno, just stand up. Our president and CEO, Richard Mistravish, right here. Our chief financial officer, Tony Fabiano. I'll start down that end. Roberta Bernhardt. Roberta. Eldoris Maynard. Donald Heighthouse. Sam Tellerico. And, of course, all of their wives, most importantly. Again, I want to thank you all for everything. This is a great honor for me. I really appreciate this. And it's something I'll always remember. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to mention that we have Gloria Pritz here, who is our town historian, and she keeps us abreast on all sorts of things that go on within the town. We want to keep the program short, and we all want to get home because tomorrow is a work day for most of you. And I'm just going to ask if anyone would like to come up and say a few words about Mayor Joe, but please, brevity would be more than appreciated. It's mandated. If there's anyone that would like to come up and just say a few words. Richard Mistravish, who's the president of the Sound Federal Savings and Loan Association. Richard.
Thank you, Richard. That resume that was given to the Mamaroneck Historical Society was also given to the Board of Directors of Sound Federal about Joe. I have a very wise Board of Directors. When they saw Joe's resume and realized what an outstanding human being he was, they said this is a natural. Also, the connection between the Lanza and the Regano family didn't hurt either, Joe. we figured we'd get plenty of deposits, for sure. Joe is a very remarkable human being. The profile tonight that we each have a copy of speaks highly of you, Joe. But I know Joe a little bit better. I know him in the sense that he serves on a board of directors. And Joe is a man of principle. Yes, he has the wisdom of Solomon, and he can look at issues, but he's a man of convictions. And that's what makes an outstanding human being. Joe is a great husband. He's a good father. He's certainly a good director. He was a great mayor. But more importantly, Joe, you're a great human being. And as the president and CEO of Sound Federal Savings, I'm just proud that you serve on the board of directors of the only community bank in Mamaroneck, Sound Federal Savings. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Just to give a little levity, because you know if I don't give a little levity, I'll get calls tomorrow and somebody say, Judge, you weren't feeling well last night? We're now in a temple, and the rabbi at a funeral is asking, is there anyone that would like to say something about the deceased? And there's total silence. And the rabbi says, is there anyone that would like to say something about the deceased? And again, there's total silence. You can see at this point now the rabbi is exasperated, and he says, is there anyone, please, that would like to say something about the deceased? And in the back of the temple, there's a fellow that's raising his hand like this, and the rabbi says, yes, sir, what do you have to say? And the gentleman said, his brother was worse. Now, is there anyone else that would like to come up and say a few words? Just want to let everybody know I'm okay. Anybody else want to come up and say a few words? I hope so.
Okay.
I was waiting for this.
Who said, oh, you're right.
Go ahead, hon.
I always said I'm going to write the book, The Real Joe Lanza. It's coming out. I'm not changing any names to protect the innocent. But I just want to let you all know that he really is human. And I want to just tell you one little story. We had gone up, we have a place upstate New York, and we had gone up one weekend. And we were riding around, and we had passed town, and we were on our way, and Joe always thinks about food. And he said, what are we having for lunch? And I said, well, there's not too much food at the house. He said, well, what do we have? I said, cheese and bread. Oh, good, we can have grilled cheese. Great. And we're driving. He said, do we have tomatoes? I said, no. He said, well, let's go back to town and get some tomatoes. I said, I don't feel like going back to town. Let's just stop at the farm. And he said, the farm is not going to have any tomatoes right now. I said, no, they'll have tomatoes. So we stop at the farm. Lo and behold, no tomatoes. Now, nice Joe over here carried on about this tomato for the rest of the day, for the rest of the night, and the next morning. Now we're driving home on 17, and he's still talking about the tomato. Now, I look in the side view mirror, and I see that there's a trooper behind us with his light on. And Joe's doing about 80, 85, and he's still talking about the tomato. And I'm watching this trooper, and I said, I think he's after us because there were no other cars behind us. Do I tell him? I don't think so. We must have driven, what, 3 miles? Finally, I said, Joe, are you ever going to stop? There's a trooper behind you. Where is the trooper? And he looks and he said, how long has he been there? I said, 5 minutes or so. And we were pulled over, and of course, Joe being Joe, did not get a ticket, but that's just some of what I have to share about Joe Lanza. The rest you'll read in my book.
George Latimer would like to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Judge, and everybody. I'm going to be blissfully brief. Joe has done so much for all of us. It's time to do something for Joe. Joe, here's your tomato.
Very good.
Thank you.
You know, whenever you're asked to be a master of ceremonies and somebody's getting an award, you usually get things that come in that, you know, sometimes are sent by anonymous people and phone calls on your answering machine and voicemails and so forth. And I understand this happened. Now, I don't know. I mean, you two guys are going to have to tell me if it did or didn't. But last year, about a day or two before Mary Ann's birthday, Joe had forgotten to get her a birthday present. And Mary Ann said, or Joe said to Mary Ann, he said, Mary Ann, your birthday is tomorrow or the next day. He says, what would you like for your birthday? And Mary Ann said, Joe, I've had enough of you. I want a divorce. And Joe said, wait a minute. I didn't intend to spend that much money on your birthday present. Is there anyone else now would like to come up? Say a word or two. Judge Joffrey, sure. And by the way, we've had a close association, the Lanzas, the Reganos, and the Joffrey family going way back. And I'm sure will continue prospectively as well. Judge Bruno Joffrey.
Thank you very much, Judge. They say that we're the sum total of all that is preceded. I think that that's very true when you talk about Lanzas and Reganos and you talk about what Joe has done. I think he speaks for the best of the family traditions of the Lanzas and the Reganos, and that goes back a long time. I remember many, many years ago when I decided for the first time to run for office, and they told me, if you're going to run, one of the things you'd better do is you better get into Mamaroneck, you better talk to the Lanzas and the Reganos because you need their help. Not because of the power, but because of the influence and because of the respect and because of the esteem in which they were held in the community. I found that to be true. In many years, Joe and I have had the occasion to speak. My brother's had the occasion to speak. My dad has had the occasion to speak with Joe and members of the family. There's always been a simpatico, a support, an understanding, and a dedication to public life. And that's what you're honoring today. The sum total of what has gone before and the embodiment of what can go forward. So, Joe, what you do here is a small token, I know, of the esteem that the community holds you, in which it holds you. I can tell you in behalf of our bank, Sound Federal, that Joe is the kind of a person who's a go-to person. He's the chairman of our building committee. He gets things done. He does them efficiently. He does them economically. And we don't have to worry about them being completed. So the evening is one in which not simply are you honoring him, but you honor all that is good about him and all that he stands for and all that the community has benefited by from the work that Joe has done. We at Sound are very happy to be associated with Joe and with Mary Ann. We thank you for the opportunity of joining this evening in honoring him and in honoring Joe, honoring both families that he represents and the community for which he stands. So thank you very much. Joe, Godspeed.
Thank you, bro. Thank you, Judge. Thank you. Now, is there anyone else that would like to approach the microphone? Okay. We're going to call now upon John Quadrini. And there is a Schoolhouse Award, Special 1816 Schoolhouse Award. And John is the chairman of the dinner committee for the schoolhouse. And John needs no further introduction. He's done everything. He even had buildings named after him. So when you reach that pinnacle in your life, and he's unselfish, and he is quite an artist. I've seen the work that he has done. And I'd like to get my hands on some of those little things that he does about the village of Mamaroneck, because they really be things that would be keepsakes. And I think, John, you should think about making sure that they're preserved either through the library or through the historical society, through the historian. I have the library. Okay, and make sure that we don't lose those artifacts because they're very important. John Quadrini.
Thank you, Judge. I'd like to have Bill Frazier and Gloria come up, please. You know, the light in here isn't so good. Would you read that? They're all the same. You got
The
to.
Mamaroneck Historical Society. Schoolhouse contributors, John P. Quadrini, Jr., Chairman, Dorothy and Louis Martin, donation of the building. Dorothy and Louis Martin donated the 1816 schoolhouse, their home, to the village of Mamaroneck and the Historical Society. And they were descendants of the original couple who purchased the schoolhouse from the town of Mamaroneck when it was a school and it was too small. And so they are to be thanked. Also Gloria Pritz, village historian, William Fraser, restoration manager, Friends of the Schoolhouse, Donald R. March, society president. This is dated May 20th, 2001. Beautiful plaque.
Thank you, Gloria. Bill, would you like to say a few words? Gloria did.
Well, the only thing I'll say is that the work we've done down there, for those of you that haven't really studied it, is actually authentic to the period. Everything we try to do down there would be something that you would have seen in 1816. So if you get a chance to get down there, give it an eyeball there, and you'll see that you haven't seen too many things like that are being built today. All our materials we use are sometimes we use old lumber because you can't get the right size lumbers today that are available. But it's coming along. Today I was down there, or actually yesterday I was down there. We have squirrels that are trying to find their way back into it. And so we've got a copper ridge on top of the wooden one. But it's coming along, and I'm very... It's got teachers from Mamaroneck and Rye that are coming down there and bringing classes, and the children are really excited, ringing the bell, seeing what it was like. And I think with that, I'd like to turn it back. And John, thank you so much for this plaque.
We have a special program when we have school classes come to visit, that we have docents who act as teachers, and we do have old school books that they read from, and of course they only write on slates with chalk. Not math, arithmetic problems. Once they've had their lessons, go outside for play with the old toys that we have available for them. And it is a beautiful program, and right now I have 6 days reserved for classes to come in the spring for 11 second grade classes, all studying colonial life. So it is just such a special program that we do have there. All teachers, all classes are welcome.
Thank you, Gloria. I'd just like to say a few words about the schoolhouse. I remember the day Gloria came to me and said, would you be the chairman and move it? So, I never say no. I said, okay. So I go home that night and I said, what am I doing? Moving the schoolhouse. If you wanted your spark plugs changed in your car, I would know how to do it. But I didn't know about the schoolhouse. So I saw a couple of people that did demolition and stuff. So they gave me a man's name out in Long Island. So I went to him, and he met me on a Sunday morning. He took a look at the schoolhouse. He said, you're crazy, and he drove away. He didn't even want to go in the property. So that made me feel good. So I received another name out in the island, and I went to him, and he says, okay, I'll give you a price. So when he came back with the price, it was over $50,000 just to move it. That was because they couldn't get it out under the wires of the school, because the wires were there, and the schoolhouse was higher than the wires. And when he said $50,000, I said, we don't have anything. So, but Susie Oppenheimer, between Gloria and I, we received a grant of $30,000, and most of that money went for moving it. So the third fellow I went to see, he come out there, and he looked at it. He said, well, when do you want it moved? I said, yesterday. So he looked it all over, and we had about a week to move it because the fellow that bought the property was going to bulldoze it. But Marty King, the late judge, was the fellow's lawyer, and he postponed the whole thing for a week. And within the week, these people from Long Island came up, took the roof off, and put it inside the building. And that's how we got it out. And we went down the street with it, down Rockland, Waverly Avenue, Rockland Avenue. And on the corner of Rockland and Palmer, Louis Martin was there. And he was supposed to come tonight, but he's very sick. He's not feeling well, and he couldn't come out. So when we went by, I was wondering what went through his mind when he saw his house go down the street to the Harbor Island. But that was it. And there's one more, and I'm sorry that he couldn't make it. But I have another friend that was coming here tonight, but he hasn't showed up yet. And Joe, he's one of your best friends. He worked with you on Harbor Island, I think every day that you were in as mayor. And he did many things with you. I know a lot of times you got angry at him, but then you made up, and he was your best friend. So, so he's gonna, I tell you. What did he say?
Got someone wants to see you.
Oh, bring him in. Bring him in.
Beautiful goose.
Do you remember? You know, in 1995, we had a parade, and the village was incorporated 100 years. And Joe asked me to put this parade together. It took about a year. So I had got the idea and everything. And so I said, Joe, I'm having a cage. We're going to put 2 of the geese in it. He said, are you crazy? He said, there are people that would be cruelty to animals. They'd be all over your tail. So our friend, Mr. Bister, who passed away, he carved that. And I had my grandson tow it in a wagon, a girl behind it with the dog, and 2 kids with a rake and scooper. So Joe, that's your best friend.
There he is, right.
Thank you. And I hope you all had a good time. You want to say something?
Yes, I have to say something more, John.
Okay, Bill.
Are you through
go ahead.
yet?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I have to say this. John said his first price to move the schoolhouse was around $50,000, and he got a much better reduction on price. And I'll tell you why he got it. Because they didn't have to move all the Con Edison wires and phone wires, because the fellas that moved it cut the roof off with a chainsaw and just collapsed it right down. When they moved that house, it looked like a shoebox coming down the road. There was no roof on it. So a day or so later, I get a call from John. Hey, Bill, you do roofing, right? What's the chances of you putting the roof on a schoolhouse? Said, no problem, John. Well, when I went down to look at this thing, it was collapsed down, had a piece of blue tarp over it.
With wooden pegs.
It was, well, yeah, we put it back together with the wooden pegs. But anyway, I feel bad for Joe at that time because while I was trying to put this roof back on the schoolhouse, cars would stop at the light at Fenimore Road there, and the cars would yell over, burn it down, get rid of it, you're crazy. I'm up on the roof. I'm taking all this abuse, and I'm saying to myself, I wonder what's going on with poor Joe in City Hall. If they're yelling at me, the labor, you can imagine what they were saying to Joe. But anyway, it worked out good, John, and Gloria and everybody. Thank Thank you so much.
And anytime you people want to come down, just let us know. We'll open up the schoolhouse. And like Gloria said, she has all these little youngsters come in, and she's teaching them how their grandfathers and grandmothers went to the one-room schoolhouse. And it's really coming along. And when the mayor said about my village, you're all invited if you want to come down. Down at the VFW in Larchmont, I'm commander there. And if you're ever in the area, just come around the back. I'm in the basement. I have a 18.
Mamaroneck is actually down there.
I have on a board 4x8. It's all buildings of the village of Mamaroneck, and I have a railroad around it. I have the railroad station, the rescue squad building, Halsted Manor, the whole bit. And then I built an 1859 country store, and I have about 300 cans of grocery cans, little bits of ones, on the shelves, and had they sold kerosene in those days for 2 cents a gallon. And upstairs there's a hardware store. On the other side there's a dry goods store, and underneath in the back is the post office. And I built Weaver Street Firehouse. I built St. Thomas's Church. That took me about 9 months to make. I had to put the little bricks together with a tweezer. That's how it was. And my latest project, which I'm almost finished, it's on a board, 4x8. It's a winter scene, and it's really coming along. So if you're ever interested, come down to the VFW, around the back, and that's where I am. Thank you very much. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves.
Thank you, John. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Gloria. Thank you. I'm going to now call upon another icon in the village of Mamaroneck. And if you know anything about anything, you know about Gene Warrington. Gene, could you come on up, please?
Thank you, Richard. Tonight I have a presentation to make, but before I make it, I'd just like to tell you a little story. About 20 years ago, Judge Lanza and two other fellas said, I got tickets from a ball game. I said, where'd you get the tickets, Rich? He says, well, Joe Lanza has a box seat down there, right? So we went down, we enjoyed ourselves. So the other night when the World Series was on, I looked over was looking at the game, and there's a guy with a jacket, with the beard, and who was it? Joe Lanza in the same seats. For over 20 years, Joe has been keeping those same seats. Somebody told me this afternoon, what are you going to do, present him with? He said, why don't you present him with a sympathy card? I said, Joe, that wouldn't be, we could have too many people in common. But Joe, I have the pleasure and the honor of presenting you this plaque from the Historical Society.
Take a picture of you with the goose.
The inscription reads, the Mamaroneck honors Joe for his more than 2 decades of extraordinary service to our community. Joe has been an active participant on numerous committees, organizations, task force, and boards, and he has received many awards and accolades in recognition of his good deeds. His leadership and dedication to our community is truly appreciated. Joe,
Thank you, Gene.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Joe.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you.
Excuse me just for 1 second.
Convey to you that Don March couldn't be here tonight because his sister-in-law is very sick, and he had planned to come here, but he couldn't make it. And we're having most of our programs are going to be about our community now, and we had one already on the recreation of the village. The next program is on March 5th at 7:30 at the community house, and it's going to be
November 5th.
November 5th, right? Yeah, November 5th at 7:30 at the library, community room, and Gloria Pritz is going to talk about the harbor, the history of the harbor. Okay, now.
Can I say one? Yeah, I just want to say one thing quickly. The Historical Society, one of our real great members. It's done so much for the society is here. This Grace Huntley Pugh in the back has done so much, and it's so good to see her here. And I just wanted to...
Thanks, Bill. Before I call on Father Healy, I just want to make one last observation. I know George Latimer and Judge Joffrey have attended a million of these dinners, etc., but this is the first one that I ever attended in which someone was honored and goosed in the same evening. Father Healy.
How do I follow that?
With a prayer.
And all of the wonderful people that are really the composite and the exemplars of Mamaroneck, we all must turn to God and thank Him for the wonderful people that He has blessed us with in this town, in this village, and all the wonderful things that they were able to accomplish in their life. And we pray in thanksgiving to God for all of them, and we ask God to endow our young people with the same enthusiasm and the same drive that enabled all of these wonderful people to do so much on behalf of their fellow citizens. Tonight is a day in which we honor someone who gave of his time, his talents, for the benefit of all. And we just pray that in generations to come, we will find that same kind of generosity and that same kind of spirit. So we praise God and thank Him and ask God, oh Lord, please bless us all with future generations of people like Joe, Lanza, and Richard, and Gloria, and Charlie, and all the rest of you who have given so much of yourselves on behalf of this community. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Thank everyone for coming, and have a safe trip home. Thank you. Good night.
Really?